Let's talk, let's talk. What you wanna talk about? Let's talk, let's talk. What you wanna talk about? Kitchen talk, let's talk. What you wanna talk about? Kitchen talk, let's talk. Conversations that cool. Kitchen talk, let's talk. What you wanna talk about? Kitchen talk, let's talk. Conversations that cool. Let's talk, let's talk. What you wanna talk about? Let's talk, let's talk. What you wanna talk about?
Hey, hey, hey. We
In the
at it
building.
again. We at it again. I love it. I love it. I love it. Listen, this is Kitchen Talk CTC,
Conversations that cook.
and that's what they do every week. France, we missed you last week. It was a good one.
I know it. I missed it.
It was
But
a good
I
one.
know y'all had a good time.
And we will talk about it again. So last week, we talked about human trafficking and learned a lot. Learned a lot. Things that you did not think about are human trafficking. It's like, what? So it is definitely a conversation that needs to be had, and there's an awareness that needs to continue. So it was a good conversation. This week we have Pastor McGhee in the building with us, in the
What's up?
virtual building.
We're back. We're back.
The virtual building with us, hanging out, talking about one of France's favorite topics. So I was thinking, we always spend a lot of time in an election season and we talk about voting. But I was thinking politics in the meantime. Like, what are we doing or supposed to be doing now? Like, what can we be doing now?
In between the time.
In between the time. In between the time. So what are we doing now that is not an election season? That what we still got another year before, because we vote in 2024, but not really until November, right?
Right.
Well, August for your primaries.
Oh, August for the
Yeah.
primary, and then so you still got a whole year and a half almost.
Yep. Correct.
So what are we doing now so that we're not scrambling or trying to figure out who's doing what? And then I got some other questions. Y'all know me.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah,
y'all want the questions first? Friends, you want to dig in? What?
No, we're gonna dig in on this one first. But I'm gonna let Darrick go first.
Yeah, man. So for me, I think the first thing we're doing is you're accepting, whether you want to or not, the results from November of last year, and you're putting that in the rearview mirror, right? You can't undo whatever took place. Here in Florida, for example, Republicans had a great night and inherited even more space in the House and Senate, and I mean every seat, cabinet seat, so on and so forth, it's Republican dominant, right? And so now you have to put that in the rearview mirror. Historically, you have less turnout in midterm elections, which is what the gubernatorial race is here. People who normally don't vote in midterms will show out in large numbers for presidential, which will be 2024. And so the sooner you let go of November of last year, the sooner you can start thinking about next election and really start putting that. And so, Lisa, that's the first thing you need to be doing. Secondly, is you need to be really looking at who you're already hearing that's running. For example, so we have Donald Trump, who's already declared, right? That we know. And Donald Trump is going to run like he was, right? He's not going to change who he was when he ran. So there really is no secret to his platform, his stance. The interesting thing is there are still people who are locked in with him. There are some who are not, but there are still people who are locked in with him. But also him running is creating a really big issue within the Republican Party because, remember when Donald Trump won years ago, he won because there was a crowd of Republicans, right? And so what people got to remember is Donald Trump does not mind DeSantis and Pence, anybody else getting in, because the more people that get in, the better it is for him. Now, granted, he would love for those guys not to get in, so have to waste any money. But the larger the crowd, the greater it is for him. And so we know he's running. Speculation is Ron DeSantis is going to run, which I think he's going to run. I think he'll announce, sometime in the spring is my belief. I think Pence gets in as well. Then you have rumors of Governor Kemp out of Georgia. You got Governor Abbott out of Texas being rumored to get in as well. So there's several people who are looking to get in. And so what you need to be doing is really researching who these individuals are, what their platforms are. And each name I aforementioned, all of their platforms are public, right? Based on how they're governing their states. They're not going to adjust when they run for president. On the Democratic side, the big question is, does President Biden file for re-election? I think if his health holds up, the answer is yes. I think he does. I really do believe that. If his health holds up, he'll run. And the big question for the Democrats is really twofold. The first question is, if he doesn't run, then who do you get behind? And if he does run, the second question, if he does run, how do you leverage him, right? What I will tell anyone is you make a sad misstep if you assume that Joe Biden is as weak as reporters are reporting. Because Governor DeSantis, Governor Abbott, Governor Kemp, they may be getting major traction in the states that they govern, amongst other things. But when you run for president, every president that's won, minus Donald Trump, most of them won because they ran closer to the middle. You can't run all liberal or because you got to run toward the middle. Trump was just an anomaly and things of that nature. But what's important about that is you can awaken the far right, or you can awaken the progressives. But the predominant electorate that vote in presidentials, they're looking for that middle. The person who's going close to be there, male or female in that regard. And I think that's very, very important. It's also important to remember that it is very hard to unseat an incumbent. It's been done. We have many examples that have been done, but it's hard to do that because what Biden is running on is on what he's done and what he'll do, right? What he's done and what he'll continue to do. Everybody else is going to run on what they will do if they were to win. And the latter is a big risk because you just don't know if they're going to do that. Whereas Biden can point to various things that he's done that really has gotten track. If you watch the news media all day long, it leads you to believe that he's weak. But the fact of the matter is his polling numbers have gotten better than they were this time last year in that regard. So you're starting to see that trickle take place. November of 2024 is a long way away. He has the greater opportunity to really hit on some key things that really excite people in a greater manner. Just yesterday, President Trump came out bashing the white evangelical pastors. That's very interesting because several years ago, they were all in with him, right? Yep. And now he's like, screw you all. You guys turned your back on me. And he's basically showing you who he is, right? Like he literally rolled into the White House with these guys guiding him. Now he's mad at him. And I think you got to look at that he.
But that's with everybody. It's just how he is. Once he gets what it is, then you out, the next one in.
That's the spoiled kid mentality.
My question for Biden too is, I believe Biden's going to run for re-election. I think barring some major health problem, I think he runs. I think the greater question, in my opinion, is does he run with Kamala as his vice president candidate, or does he get somebody else? I think that's the bigger question.
I don't know.
I believe Biden is going to run. I think that he gives him the better chance to even to win or be contentious.
You would change that? Like he would change that?
I think it all comes down to pressure. I think it comes down to whatever it may be. I do. I think there's a real possibility that there could be a change there.
I mean, and for me, it's like, when you ask that question, I'm not down in the dirt and I don't know and see everything, and I'm not this politic guy or whatever. But just being John Q. Citizen, right? And you look at it, it's like she's disappeared.
Mm-hmm.
It's like she's you know she's not existent. So the question becomes, what does she bring? You know, if you run again, what is she bringing to the table? Because I mean, you know, she's not existent right now.
But that's not uncommon for a vice president.
I was about to say that.
They disappear in the background all the time.
I was about, and there's a lot of the things that they do are not seen, right? So there are things and people that she meet that we don't see on the news, that we don't get the hype about. Because again, you want your front man to get the credit for the things that he is doing. So
I mean, because we could say the same thing about Biden when Obama was president.
Correct. And I do think she's doing things on the you know, for the American people. You just is not seeing it now.
And it was announced today. She's actually going to be in Tallahassee on Sunday.
Oh wow!
Did you know?
It's going to be a Roe versus Wade rally, and it was breaking news that she's going to be at that rally on Sunday. The time hasn't been set yet, but you know that's one of her platforms, right? And so I mean, getting her out more does matter. But again, I think he runs. I think he runs. I don't know who else would run. I think he does run. I think he gives him the best chance of maintaining that seat.
I don't think he's not going to have her on. Like she's going to be on because that's the type of guy he is.
Yeah,
he's loyal into that sense, so you know he's not going to shake it up like that too much.
Yeah.
But before we even get that far, there's something that we have to go back to. Brother McGhee. And before I even say that, let me say what's up to Dr. Scott and what's up to JT Plummer.
Yeah.
So one of the things we must do is we must keep the people that were elected, whether you voted for them or not, accountable.
There you go. That's good.
You know, okay, yeah, we're thinking about the next election and we want to see who's gonna fit, but there are people who are in office right now that we need to make sure they're doing right by the American people. Mm-hmm. So, you know, we got to see, okay, you ran that. We need to figure out what's going on. And we need to have people in place to keep us abreast about what's happening so that you can make that call to the office and say, nah, I disagree with that. Or, nah, I don't think you should go that way.
Yeah.
And if you do, guess what? We'll see you in November.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That desk you have, be ready to move out because you won't be there long. We got to keep the people that we elect accountable. And I don't know. I don't know if we do a great job at that, but we got to find ways to be better at it. Let's put it that way.
And friends, I think that's a great point. But one thing that I realize in today's politics, the politicians do a great job of doing magic tricks.
Oh yeah.
You know, it's the art of distraction. I'm going to keep you focused on something over here, so that I can do what I want over here. And as long as I keep you focused on that, you think I'm doing a great job. Absolutely. And so a lot of the stuff that some of these individuals that are in Congress and in Senate, a lot of things they're doing to stir up certain things on the far right or the far left, that's their distraction. They're doing a whole nother magic trick. They don't really care one way or the other about what they're stirring up. It's out of I got you over here focused, and you think this, and as long as you keep my pockets fat, and as long as you keep doing this, then hey, we're good.
That's a good point. I think the other thing is we have to be careful because 24 is going to be very national focused. We have to be careful as everyday citizenry not to forget that there's also going to be some local stuff happening, right? Mm-hmm. And statewide, for example, every 2 years, you know, representatives, U.S. congressmen have to is on the ballot. Your Florida representative is going to be on the ballot. We tend to forget those things. We're so focused about what's happening in D.C. Mm-hmm. And I always say this, and I really believe this, that national politics irritate me, but local politics affect me. Mm-hmm. And oftentimes we ignore the local stuff, which has a greater impact on us. Mm-hmm. But there are certain people who probably shouldn't win, but they, as Dr. Scott said, they kind of just slide in because the magic trick has you looking over here. And by the time you realize they've gotten in, we've been asleep at the wheel the entire time. And I think that's important listen, the governor's not going to be on the ballot for gubernatorial, neither a cabinet, right? But there's still going to be some critical things taking place in that regard. We got to be very mindful of. And so what I always try to advise individuals is not only just look at the news media. There used to be years ago, the encouragement they would give you is go to people's websites and read their policy paper. Yeah. Because of social media now, some politicians, they don't even have policy papers out anymore. They do everything. Now they basically do a tweet here or there, and that's it. And nobody's holding them to task as to what their stances are because our attention span has become so limited.
Yeah. JT, you were gonna say something?
Listen, as the next president of the United States of America, again, I just want you to know, I don't care what you guys think. I really don't. Me and Melania are gonna go on. We're gonna have our vacations. I'm gonna treat her like trash. I'm not gonna
stay still together.
I thought you were gonna say something.
I don't care what goes on. This is my people. My people will still vote me back in. But
oh my God.
Can I get some of your people? Your people, I'll buy you. I'll buy you some kind of way. But the thing about that is, all I have to do.
You know, maybe forget what I was gonna say.
All I have to do is go and get Herschel Walker. He's such a great speaker. Herschel Walker. Listen, you can laugh all you want to, but Herschel Walker is one of the greatest scholars I've ever met. Good, he reaches the third grade level, but I don't really care about any of that as long as I get you people.
Yeah, but
and the vampires.
But you know what though? Let me say it before I forget again. You know, I was gonna say, and he helped me remember where it's like we're living in a day and time with social media and everything. Does it seem like the voters really care if they're being lied to or not? You know, when you well,
it depends on who's doing the lying.
Yeah. And that's what I'm saying. This one guy, he done lied about everything. You know what I mean? But that goes back to, so did Trump. But he's in office now. Herschel Walker lied about stuff we knew he was lying about, and he still was in a runoff.
It's crazy, right? Isn't that is crazy to me?
Still in a runoff, and it's like, wait a minute, huh?
So what I found was strange with that. I'm sorry, Dr. Scott.
Go ahead.
What I found was strange with that was one of the commercials that I heard was, "Oh, Herschel Walker scares me. He lied about this and he lied about that, but Trump didn't scare you, and he lied about this and he lied about that." So it depends on who's doing the lying.
But with that little Lisa too, that's a media, that's a media campaign.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is, I'm not even talking about the advertising that they put out. I'm talking about the fact that this person is knowingly lying, and we still are voting for him.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. You know what I mean? You're still voting, and you know he lied. I mean, come on, Trump, they know he lied, and they still back the fact that, it was stolen.
But even beyond that, Marvin, even beyond that, I am still, and he done been president and voted out. I'm still trying to figure out how he became a viable candidate to even run.
I think it started with a joke. It started with a joke, and the joke just went too far. And when the joke went too far, it was too late to back out. And he just happened to take it as far as it could go, and he actually won.
And he won. And that goes to the point of what are we looking for?
But that goes back to my question.
Right back to your question. Back to your question. How did this happen?
I don't think it will happen again. So that's the other piece to this. Because
friends, I throw my hands up at that because I never would have thought we would have had a 45.
But now, what they thought was that he was going to be in office for the full term. Him losing took away the power that they would have wanted him to have. So I do think that a lot of Republicans are now saying, okay, we do want somebody, but we don't want somebody who's going to just do one term. We want somebody that's going to be able to do 2 terms. So I think he puts himself out of the race in that fact. Will there be people that's going to vote for him? Yes. Even though they know he's lying and they know it's not true. They believe, I think wholeheartedly, a lot of people believe that he was going to do something for them. Whether it's big or small, he was going to help them maybe secure assets or have them look and feel a certain way. I don't think that moving forward, he's going to be able to continue that with a one-term turnaround. And then Republicans
like
again
you're
going to have
on
to
a
find
power
somebody.
game. Like, I gotta jump in.
Go
Here's the
ahead.
thing, though. You look at it from a gubernatorial standpoint. So Jeb Bush succeeds Lawton Childs, really Buddy McKay, right? Jeb does 8 years. Jeb paves the way for Republican Charlie Crist. Charlie does 4 years with more national aspirations.
Right.
As a result, everybody assumes it's going to be Alex Sink. Rick Scott does 8 years, right? He beats her. He does 8 years. DeSantis has done 4. He's now in his second 4, right? But what happens is France makes a good point because, you know, the ultimate goal is to do the full 8. If you ever do study on politics, you realize they will tell you that if you win, let's use Obama as an example, right? Your first 4 years, part of those first 4 years is you're undoing the previous person's stuff.
Yep.
You're trying to set foundation. You really actually start implementing your policies into the second term for the most part. You get some stuff in, but for the most part. But in Republican circles, the belief in some Republican circles is Donald Trump is the reason you have Joe Biden as president, right? If Donald Trump had not been the president, he would not. Another Republican president would not have lost re-election. So France makes a really good point because the ultimate goal is when you get in that you have 8 years, not 4 years. And you can go back to when Jimmy Carter lost to Reagan. You can go back to when Daddy Bush lost to Bill Clinton, right? You watch those things. The Democratic Party, when Carter lost to Reagan did 8 years as a result of that, right? When Bush lost to Clinton did 8 years as a result of that, right? And so now the challenge when you are the sitting president and you lose your reelection is that now you set that party back for several years they weren't prepared for, because they almost spent like the first 4 years almost in shock and in awe in that regard. And so that same pattern is before us now because Trump did 4 years, Biden beats him, and now Biden's facing his next 4 years. The point of the matter is the ultimate goal. You look at in Florida, when Republicans flipped the legislature from Democrat to Republican, they've never looked back. Their numbers have grown and grown and grown. Look at the gubernatorial. I've been doing lobbying for 22 years. The entirety of my professional career, Republicans have owned the mansion, right? When they finally got it under Jeb Bush, they never looked back. That's the ultimate goal, is to maintain in that regard. So France makes a really good point because, it's even to let me go to his last point. Some of the things you're reading now, as far as anti-Trump, aren't from Democrats. It's from Republicans who years ago sitting right next to him singing Kumbaya. Because here it is now. They're no longer in a trance and worried about him anymore. So now they're saying what they really feel. And these some of these people, they're going to try to block it as much as possible. They don't realize, though, is Trump benefits off of chaos and confusion.
Correct.
So the more they attack him, there's a study that was done when Trump was running for president against Clinton that Trump came with the potential. Well, basically, he dominated the airway, good or bad. He was on TV all the time.
All the time.
That's what he loves. That's what he enjoyed. The question I would raise to Governor DeSantis, Governor Kemp, Governor Abbott is, can you handle it when Donald Trump begins to attack you, when he begins to say things about you off the wall? Because these guys have never been put in situations like that, like Trump did to Marco Rubio in debate or did to Jeb Bush in debate. Can you handle that? Because most of these guys have never been in a situation where Trump is literally calling you out in front of the national TV and you got to respond to it. They're not ready for that. But that's his ammo.
Mm-hmm.
And that's,
You and your mama.
he's loyal to nobody.
Yeah, and
You, your mom, and your wife.
and that's the thing. They did the same thing before he became number 45. They talked about him saying he wasn't presidential, but the moment he started getting the generate the following of the public and getting the numbers, they changed their tone. So with that being said, I listen. These guys, they flip like you flipping pancakes. One moment they're saying January 6th, and this is despicable, and he needs to bop, bop, bop. And then not even a week later, oh, he's the greatest thing since sliced bread, since the moving car. You know what I mean? And so you just don't know because they're fickle.
Mm-hmm.
Waffle House pancakes are IHOP pancakes.
What'd you
Nope.
say?
Say one more time, JT.
Never mind. You said flipping like pancakes. Waffle House pancakes or IHOP pancakes?
Well, they gotta be IHOP because Waffle House don't make pancakes.
That was the first thing that
Listen,
came to my
I
mind.
do think
Like, Waffle House don't make pancakes. They make waffles. But yeah, go ahead.
one of the things we have to do, besides what I said earlier in terms of ensuring that the current people are doing what they need to do, we've talked about this in the past. We need to start grooming and preparing the next whoever to take the space. So we got to do a better job with that as well. And say, okay, you know what? This is the guy. Let's start backing them now.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, Franz, I think like we got somebody. I know somebody in particular. They've been a lobbyist for like 20-something years.
Right.
You know what I mean? And trying to get them to shift and move from lobbying to be the guy that has to be lobbied.
Right.
I mean, you know.
Ooh, I wonder who that is.
I mean, I'm just saying. Because see, this is the thing, right? This is the thing. And we're going from a time where, you know, 2 Timothy chapter 3 is so in the last days will be what? Perilous times. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And that's where we are, you know. And so trying to find people who want to do right. You know what I mean? And really do what's best, not just for themselves and their own agenda, but for the people. You're not going to find I don't want to say you won't, but it's hard to find them and put them in and get them to run for office because politics is a dirty game.
It's foolishness.
And those individuals that are great people don't want to be in that dirty game.
It is
foolishness. So if we think about this, the Democratic Party in Florida finds itself again repeating history. What is that history? They lose a big statewide election, and the result of that has been for many years, and is happening right now, that the chair of the Democratic Party resigns. And so now they find themselves having to now interview all over again. That whole process sets you back. Because here's what happened. Not only are you looking for a new person, as you're looking for a new person, you're not raising any money. You're not raising any money for the party or statewide candidates. Republicans are raising money. And so you think about it, you have a large election coming up next year. You ought to be preparing for that. And yet what's happening is you're at a standstill all over again because you're not thinking long game, right? Like right now, the 2026 Florida gubernatorial election, I can name probably 5 to 6 potential Republican nominees right now in an open seat. I probably can give you one Democratic, possibly one. I can name you 6 serious candidates for 2026 already, right? It's the long game. It's the long, whether they run or not doesn't matter. The fact of the matter is, if I mention their 6 names in whatever setting, people not long say, you know what, I can see that happening. It's the long game. The money is also played out in that game. Another example, look at DC. When you watch the speaker vote take 15 rounds, what you saw was literally inner party fights, right? You saw McCarthy wanted to be speaker so bad, he gave up everything just to have the title.
Yep.
And people like Matt Gaetz knew that. So when I asked Matt Gaetz, why did you finally do what you did? He said, because I got everything I wanted. And that's what I asked for, right? What you saw in that, though, if you look at it with your eyes wide open, is you literally saw a fight for control within a party, right? You got the McCarthy's, who is known as the old school Republicans. He's too moderate, he's too weak, right? And you got the Matt Gaetz's crew of Republicans who are very right wing, blow up, like that type of thing. You're seeing that tug of war take place. And the Matt Gaetz way of thing is very dangerous because they'll step on anybody to get what they want, and they proved it in a national audience. Now, here is the danger, though. People got to remember that Matt Gaetz is good at this. Matt Gaetz reads the rules that governs Congress. And so when he was doing what he was doing, he knew based on the rules of Congress what he could and could not do. A lot of people are running for office and winning office not knowing the foundational documents that governs what they're running. And so they're holding a title with no power at all, which I end up having a Matt Gaetz. But guess what? Matt Gaetz' name is in consideration for gubernatorial in 2026. So is Byron Donalds, who France went to FAMU for 1 year, right? Back in 96 when I came in. Like there are other people looking at that. And so what we as elected to do, and I mentioned get over November of last year, hold them accountable, absolutely. But if you're not careful, you will look up and realize we're in November, we're in 2024 voting again, and we've done no research whatsoever in that regard.
Yeah.
And you have another 4 years that have gone by, nothing getting done. In the gubernatorial midterm, the incumbent typically normally wins re-election because the voting percentage goes down in your midterms. People don't even show up to vote. Lisa asked a great question. Do people, you asked Dr. Scott about people care about being lied to? Lisa said it depends on who's doing the lying. You go back to the Herschel Walker race, right? Herschel Walker garnered 1.7 million votes, right? So that's 1.7. Now, they may not all be supporters of him, but there's two things to remember. If Senator Warnock wasn't black, there wouldn't have been a Herschel Walker running. Let's be honest, right?
Nope.
That'd be the first thing.
Yep.
The second thing is you look at it and you say, I hate that other guy so much that I will accept the lies of this person because I don't want this person.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I think that's important to think about, because here's what Republicans care about more than anything else. As much as they care about the presidency and they care about speakership, they care about more than that is they care about the courts. They care about the judicial. They care about being able to appoint people to courts. That's what they care about. That's the main thing. And I saw this happen when Rick Scott was running for re-election for governor in 2014. Don Gaetz was leaving out of being Senate president. These two guys do not like each other. Don Gaetz got invited to be on the bus with Rick Scott. He eventually got on the bus, and they asked him why. And he said, listen, we're not friends. He said, but I would rather have Rick Scott as governor of Florida than I think it was Charlie Crist. Then Chris, he asked him why. He said, because for the courts. That's all he cared about. So he basically said, I hate this guy, but I will bite my tongue so that a Republican can be sitting in the governor's chair to make appointments to the Florida Supreme Court. And now look at the Florida Supreme Court. Although it's supposed to be nonpartisan, we all know that court is very conservative. And guess what happened? They don't mind losing in the lower courts, and they'll appeal to the higher court. You know why? Because they know if it gets to the Supreme Court, the chances are the governor's gonna get what he wants. That's where it all comes down. We don't play that game. We fight more over just the title. We're not realizing this thing is bigger. It's the foundational documents. That's why most of the leaders in DC are in their 80s, right? Look at Mitch McConnell and those guys. They're never going to retire, right? Because they want to hold the power to control the document.
And here's the thing. That's like, to me, and I know it's ongoing. I want to say that it's been a new phenomenon that we've now are starting to look at courts more than we look at the titles in terms of president, governor, blah, blah, blah. The courts is essentially what they're fighting for, and in control of who makes these laws and who sets these laws and who governs them, who actually enforces the laws. Man, your boy, what's his name? I just had it and I lost it. had it and I lost it.
It'll come back.
He'll come back.
Come
He'll
back.
come
So
back.
here's a one of my questions for tonight, and I know it's I took social studies in high school, but I, for the life of me, cannot remember some of this stuff.
I think we all did, didn't we?
We were supposed to.
Right.
That was a credit, right? You had to have that credit.
Right. And so just so I think when people have a better understanding of how things go, it helps them be more informed and make better choices. And so my question is, I was talking to one of my students, and he was talking about starting a party, something on campus, getting the college students more involved in this particular party, that particular party, or in SGA making parties and stuff like that. So my question is, where did the whole Democrat Republican kind of spawn from, and then why is it such a bad thing if Black people decide to be Republican? Because that's like, oh my God, you're a Republican. So how did all of that come about? I know that's a whole history kind of.
Listen, that's a whole lesson.
I know, but in the time that we have, but I mean, it's a discussion. It's something that I'm curious about.
Okay, and I know most of you, well, the brothers probably have something for sure for that.
Do your thing, bro.
But I had to go back to what I was trying to remember.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
And it ties back to what you were saying in terms of Democratic and Republican parties, right? So you have people who don't just say, I'm a Republican, they'll die Republican. So that's all they know. Even if it comes at a cost to them personally, financially, spiritually, when Barack was running, this interviewer went out to somewhere in Oklahoma in the fields of nowhere. This gentleman had a trailer. The trailer was literally falling apart. No, I'm talking about you can see the roof down, everything on the floor. It's poured and poured. And this is what his statement was: I will rather die on my knees
than to vote for Barack Obama.
Yes, sir. Now the reporter's telling him, hey, listen, Barack, the Democratic Party wants to put things in place to help people like you, to give you, opportunities, to help you build your house. I'd rather die on my knees. And Darrick, that's what I was trying to get back to earlier. When we talk about the different parties and how people see this, the political landscape. You have people who that's all they would do. They, even if it would work for them.
Yeah.
I mean, Herschel that way. Because I'd rather vote for my party, regardless of who the person is, than vote for anything else, even though that other person is assisting me. And that has been the same ongoing trend, Lisa, since the parties have been put in place. Was there a little switch? Yes, but these people, man, go ahead, Doc.
There's several different things that when you start talking about we can go, it's almost like someone got better at the game that you started. You know what I mean? If you go back, the Democratic Party wasn't for the party that was previous, was probably being called Democrat. They wasn't for minorities or blacks or whatever. But the other party, which became the Republican Party, it was, what I'm saying, they were. And over time, we switched, right? But I mean, sometimes you have to ask this question too. Like some people are diehard Republican, right? And you got some people that diehard Democrat. and they're going to vote with Democratic. And regardless, now remember, a lot of this stuff is smoke and mirrors.
Correct. I was getting into
Because
that.
at the end of the day, a lot of the stuff that some of the Democrats say they want to do for you, that's just, hey, that's the smoke and mirror, because I got another agenda that I'm pushing as well. You got to ask yourself this question when you start looking at the parties. You know what I mean? What do they really stand for? What policies and what things does it seem like they're pushing a little bit more? If I stop looking at the smoke and mirrors and look at some of the things they're pushing, you know what I mean? How would that affect me in the long run? You know what I mean? For example, this hate speech, right? Just using that as an example. So yeah, they're pushing hate speech now because the smoke and mirror is trying to stop racism, right? That's the smoke and mirror. Because what they really want to do is, once we get that in place, then guess what? If you're preaching in the pulpit and you say something about something that we don't like, now guess what? That's hate speech. So although they're saying it's about anti-racism, you got to ask who's really navigating and pushing these certain things. You follow what I'm saying? And so at the same time, you got to ask yourself, or not you, but the party itself has to ask, what are we really pushing? What do we really stand for? And then are we really putting the message out that the masses can truly hold on to and gravitate to? You know what I mean?
See, Darrick said it earlier. People really, this process is very much confusion. If I can continue the confusion to happen, I can continue to make you look here and make you look there. There are people who are going to benefit, whether it's the Republican Party that wins or the Democrat Party that wins. So we have to be astute enough to say, okay, what's going to be best for me, whether it's Republican or Democrat. I think we just get lost in the sauce when we start trying to go back and forth and who's doing what. And you said it earlier, we don't know what's happening in the back room. While we're looking over here, something's happening back there. So we got to be very careful in terms of what the party looks like, because we forget about the real piece, which is the people.
Yeah, they saying look at this hand, but they slapping you with the other.
Correct. So we forget about the people who's what the party should be working for, whether it's Democrat or Republican, which is why I said what I said at the beginning. It's our job to ensure that whoever's in office is doing their job.
Because to
hold them accountable, whether you voted for them or not.
And I think that's the way I feel as well. I'm a Democrat, but at the same time, man, I just want people that's going to do their job. I just want somebody that's going to do right by the people. You know, we the people. Listen, they can say we the people all they want to, but at the same time, we know that whoever gets in office, a lot of times they don't care anything about the people that they have pledged to represent. So that's just how I feel about the whole situation when it comes to Democrat and Republican. Yes, I am a Democrat, but if a Republican gonna get in there and do his job, a lot of people, I go back to this as well. Charlie Crist, yes, he was a Republican governor, but Charlie Crist actually tried to do a little something, to be right. He was trying to be righteous while he was governor. Well, while he was the governor, but he just carried the title Republican.
But see, and that's the other piece that's why I was not a big Charlie fan.
Because you think he flip-flop?
Because that's what people do. Let me go with the best chance for me to get in place. And the Republicans gave him the best chance at that time. So he flops over and say, you know what? The Democrats may give you the best chance. And he still has not been able to win. And again, at the end of the day, I want you to do your job. But there are people who have agendas that really do try to push. So I'm going to show you this, but I'm really doing X, Y, and Z. And it hurts us. in the long run. Just like
But see,
Derrick said,
I think this
you
is
gotta play the long game.
yeah. I think this is the thing, though. I mean, and Pastor Brother McGhee, you know better than I do. But my thing is this: I think if you look at it, 95% of them all have an agenda.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, think about it. You don't take that type of job getting the pay they get if you don't have an agenda.
I would agree.
It's about, okay, yeah, I'm not getting paid on this side, but I control X, Y, and Z. So I got power, which, hey, I got the power. It's getting.
I was wondering when we was gonna get a song.
It's kind of
hectic.
Listen, I think what's important. So Lisa asked a question about the establishment of the Democrat and Republican Party. The answer to that question is it goes back to the beginning. If you go back to the very beginning, it actually started out as the Federalists. That was the beginning. And then there was dispute amongst the quote unquote founding fathers. And then there was the creation of, at the time, it was the Democratic Republic. It was a connection. And then there was division amongst that broke the two of those things off. But go back to the very beginning. And then what happened was the Democratic Party has been around longer just based on creation than the Republican Party. But when they really had a division, it was the founding fathers' arguments. And so then they started cementing themselves in certain platforms. For example, Republicans are known for being way more about the economy, way more about small business and things of that nature. Democrats were more about the people, right? And social services and things of that nature. And then it started growing and growing and growing. But JT makes a good point. And this past election, you look at the gubernatorial election, Florida saw more what they dubbed Democrats for DeSantis than they had ever seen. Democrats in 2018, there were Democrats who voted for the Democratic nominee that in 2022, they voted for DeSantis, right? The same exact voter, 4 years later, voted for DeSantis. Whether it was one issue or multiple issues, they did that. And the Democrats for DeSantis number grew the more. Listen, former Commissioner Kerner, who was a former Democratic legislator, former commissioner down in South Florida, the governor just appointed him to run Department of Highway Safety and Motor Vehicles. Kerner not only endorsed the governor as a Democrat, he did it on a major platform. Then he went on Fox News that same day and got interviewed by Fox News, and they asked him why did he do it. He had no ties to the governor. He just laid out a few things about the governor that he thought was the right thing to do. Some of it was a knock against Charlie, right? Because Charlie, everybody knew what to expect from Charlie Crist. The fact of the matter was you started seeing more Democrats, people who saying, I'm not going to leave the Democratic Party, but I'm comfortable with voting outside of my party for said person. Now, going back to the agenda, when Governor DeSantis first filed to run, no one knew anything about him. I knew about him from a congressional standpoint, but nobody knew anything about him. He had no platform whatsoever. What catapulted DeSantis, if you remember now, was a Donald Trump tweet. And that tweet was powerful, right? But if you go back to his, when he first filed, from the time he filed to the primary victory over Adam Putnam, you can't find one thing that actually said this is what he was running on.
Correct.
Not one thing. But if you look at him now, the boldness of the governor's agenda, number one, is because you have the influence and the polls show that you have the favor, but also it's because the donors who giving you big money, they have an agenda that you now have to adopt. And I've been saying to people for a long time. In my opinion, the governor doesn't have a choice but to run, because the people who've given him big money has given him money for a presidential run, not a gubernatorial run. In the history of Florida, you've never had a gubernatorial candidate have over $100 million for a gubernatorial race. You don't need that much money, right? He had a 23-1 money lead over Charlie Crist. That money is not for running for governor. That money's running for president. You got people, Betsy DeVos, who was commissioner of education under Donald Trump. She and her husband was the founder of Amway. They still own the Magic, things of that nature. She is now endorsing DeSantis to run for president. She was in the Trump administration, right? Because they all see that DeSantis is a guy. The point of the matter is they all have an agenda. You start seeing these things lay out, critical race theory, the transgender fight, all these things didn't start with DeSantis. He just began to buy into it and run with it because it's a greater agenda.
Correct.
And we have to understand, when I talk about getting over elections, is that everything that is occurring. I was talking to France when we first opened up. It's in the news today where the governor's administration is blocking, the AP course on African American studies, right? Well, that's a major deal. Basically saying it's not even relevant to be talked about. That's a major situation. But you only do something like that when you know that you have the influence, the power, and the money to be able to protect you in something like that. You also do that because you know there is an audience of people that you are catering to that want to hear that. And this was what happens. When Matt Gaetz was challenging McCarthy, nobody had much to say really about it, right? When Jim Jordan said, I don't want to be speaker and say anything about it, people got riled up when Byron Donalds got involved. That's when they got riled up. And we have to be careful because there's nothing wrong with being a Black Republican, a white Democrat, nothing wrong with that. But you have to make sure that you understand, number one, why you align with that ideology, and make sure, number two, that you don't become the token. Because what will happen again is that they'll launch you out. They will launch you out. Candace Owens became the Black conservative voice when Trump was president, right? They would send her out there to begin to go after Blacks who were not aligned with Trump. And then all of a sudden, when Trump lost, then all of a sudden she finds herself now being relegated to the back row. Stacey Dash all of a sudden got very vocal. When Trump blew, all of a sudden, you're relegated to the back row.
At the White House.
Right? Because they assume that they are seen. Omarosa tells you best, right? She thought that she was best friends with Trump. So all of a sudden, something go on, and they realize we don't need you no more.
Yeah.
And that's the mistake sometimes we make as a people is that we assume that we have been accepted. It's the old adage, man. They want our rhythm, can't handle our blues. And we got to be careful not to find ourselves thinking that because, listen, most Black Christians have a conservative lens when it comes to certain things.
Yes.
Most Black Christians, when it comes to finance, whatever, we have a conservative lens. Most Black Christians, even if you are a Democratic voter, you have a lens in that. You have a leaning in that regard on certain things, right? I'll give you a good example. When it comes when the Andrew Gillum thing took place, and they said that Andrew Gillum got caught having an affair, but a lot of Black Christians said, "Oh, that's sad. We're gonna pray for him." When they found out it was a male, all of a sudden there were Black Christians that said, "Can't do it.
I'm out.
Can't be with him," right? Because all of a sudden now that personal conviction that they have in that area, they now like, I don't know, I can't really do that. My point of all that is Florida has never had a Black governor. Remember this now. Never had a Black governor. We never had a female governor.
Nope.
We've gotten close on both.
Yep.
People got excited about both. At the last minute, both of them never made it across the finish line. And here is why. And President Obama said it best. Because people have a hard time accepting a Black person telling them what to do. Give you one quick story real quickly. Before I bought my house years ago, my realtor took me around looking at various houses. We saw beautiful houses. And I kept saying, man, why is this house, for example, so on the market? He said, Derrick, look around. I looked around. I said, okay, I've seen a picture on the wall. He said, in real estate, this was they teach you. If you are a Black homeowner trying to sell your home, they tell you take down any reflections of your family on the wall. Because white potential home buyers do not want to feel like they bought a home from a Black person. So have nothing up that shows that this home is owned by a Black person.
Yeah.
Because to them, if I buy a house from Dr. Scott, I took a step down.
Yep.
And that's the mistake that we make sometimes.
Even when it's a step up.
Exactly. And that's the mistake that we make when you look at it. So when you think about it from the Democratic Republican Party, you're seeing more people migrating over. But I would say the Democratic Party, the problem with the Democratic Party is that they're still advancing outdated ideology.
Correct.
Right? You got to look at what's going on. and ask yourself, are we still advancing things that's old school?
Right. Are they? Do you have to ask, are you advancing things that really matter to our community?
Correct.
Or and we say this time and time again, you got to stop expecting us to vote Democratic just because we're black.
Because we're black.
You know what I mean?
But the other piece to that, Doc, is, you know, I want to be considered at a different class or a different bracket, and I don't want to lose my money, so I'm going to go on the Republican side because I don't want to be viewed again confusion. And
but again, in France, you're right. But this is the thing. But those are issues that matter. You know what I mean? I mean, think about it. You know, you can't keep just in our economy, the way in a capitalistic society works, you just can't keep printing money.
I would agree 100%.
You know what I mean? You can't keep printing money, and then you can't keep sending billions and billions of dollars overseas, and we ain't even paying our own debt.
And that's the other piece in terms of the Democratic side and the view. Okay, can we help? Yes, but we still need to help we need to help our own communities, right? So that it's hard because of what I stated earlier. We got to be careful to say who's really supporting our agenda.
Yeah.
What we need and what we need. You talk about sending money to other areas. You got war zones happening in your state. So again, we got to have leaders in place that we can say, yeah, you understand the home base and you also understand the international base. Can we support? Can we help? And that's how we work checks and balances. You know what I mean? I can't.
And the more we talk about this, the more I be wanting to just rip my voter's registration card up and say, y'all have it. No, I know I cannot do that.
Right.
I know I cannot do that.
But this is the thing.
It's just so disheartening.
Right. But this is the thing.
To find these ingenuous people that do not care about me.
Yeah. But see, this is the thing too. You know, I think too, even if you're Democrat or Republican, right? Mm-hmm. This is one of the things in that they've been saying, Darrick and friends been saying, the show. We have to get out of being so Democratic or Republican that I can't go into whoever's office is there and hold them accountable to do certain things.
Right.
You follow what I'm saying? And I think like the Democratic Party, you know, they're gonna have to listen. I mean, I understand they've been listening to looking at Cooley High. It's so hard to say goodbye to yesterday. I mean, and that's the problem. And what's happening is suddenly they're pushing an agenda that most conservative blacks and the younger generation don't have a hard time grabbing a hold to.
Yeah.
And again, you know, here it is. If you don't vote for me, you're not black.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Those things, hey man, you got to let that go because our agenda is more than just food stamps and making, you know what I mean? We're business owners now. What are you doing to help our business? How am I making sense? Those things
and not just minority business, but black business.
Yeah.
Because when you say minority, we get more women and not necessarily black women. We get more Asian and all those other things. When you put the title minority,
I mean, but just FYI, though,
black is up under the, you know.
Yeah, but just FYI, the fastest growing group that's entrepreneur in business is black women.
Yep.
Yeah. So understand that. Yeah, I mean minority, but black women own business is the fastest group of business owners, and they're outpacing. You know, they're outpacing a lot of us. Now, again, that doesn't mean it's easy, but let's understand when you're looking at small business.
That's because we're real popular right now. Everybody wants.
Yeah.
Well, let me say
Everybody
this.
want to be you.
Yes and no.
I don't know about all of that. Everybody trying to clear their conscience.
Well, that is because of, to me, that Willie Lynch has done a number. He's done a number. So now I can continue to cause chaos and confusion. And instead of saying, okay, here's a group of people that can move forward, we just celebrated MLK, holiday. And I said, it's still a dream. It's still a dream.
It was all a dream.
We still
not Biggie, MLK.
We still trying to achieve the dream. To say, hey, you know what? We have people in place that are looking.
God, when we gonna wake up? And I don't know. Listen, it's
money you
make every single time, and until we wake up, until we say, you know what, it's not just about the politics; it's about the people.
It's about the people.
We again,
but I mean, to the people that run, it really isn't about the people; it's about the power.
Yeah, but see, it's about the power, but it's about the policies. The policies, depending on who create the policies, affect the people.
Yep.
And so at the end of the day, whether you're Democratic or Republican, we have to find a way to have some say-so in what policies are being created.
Well, at the end of the day, we got to vote. The problem is voting for the right person, Brother Darrick.
Yeah, we got to do more than vote. We got to do more than vote. We got to stay engaged.
Correct.
And recognize who the right person is. I ain't seen the right person
yet.
yet.
We need to start.
That's the big one.
What you said, JT?
I said that's the big part to me. The right person.
Yeah. See, and I think that's the thing too. Identifying the right person over just trying to identify a party.
Right.
Yeah. Well, see, that's a good one. Go ahead, Frank.
That's not going to happen until we really start brooming. Darrick, going back again, we got to start early in terms of preparing. Because believe it or not, I do think that there are times another party, I'm not going to say which one, will ask somebody to run against them just to have that leverage. Just to have that stake, and you thinking you voted for this person, but they know they're gonna lose, so they put them in the race. So that
no, Franz. That just happened recently. That just happened recently in the past election. Yeah.
What's that?
So, for example, there was a seat that Republicans never run for.
Yeah, and you do that. You do that on purpose, right? For example, you look at several races. You can look at when Kurt Bender ran against Gallup, right? Right. Yep. I mean, the Republican strategy though is you want to. I mean, let's go back. Forget about that. Let's go back to when Owsley beat Marva Preston. The polls showed that Marva was not going to win that race. Right. But here's what there are two things Republicans did that were strategic. The first thing was they found somebody to run that could appeal to certain voters. Marva was law enforcement. But number two, and most importantly, was by putting her in that race and they had money put behind her, they forced the Democrats to spend money they weren't prepared to spend in that race.
Right. And
so now all of a sudden you're depleted in other competitive races because now you're wasting money over here. So by the time in that race went all the way to that November, and that's this past election, Lauren Book had a Democrat running against her, very popular. They spent over $5 million in that race, and now you had 3 Democratic senators who were in competitive races who needed money, gave them no money, and guess what happened? All 3 of them ended up losing. Owsley, Janet Cruz, and I'm missing one more, end up losing. They had no money, right? No money. My point about it, again, it's a strategic thing, right? It's the long game situation. And Lisa, I will tell you, as much as it gets discouraging, you still have to do it.
Absolutely.
You just have to do it. Because there's so many people who've already checked out of the game and just say it doesn't even matter anymore. Or some who've never even checked into the game. There are people I meet who've never voted before, have never voted, have no intentions of voting at all.
Yeah.
And I have to respect that. I really do.
There's a quote I gave my students tonight. Thank you, Ms. Lisa. I had a great time tonight. But the quote is, if you don't know how to play, you're going to get played. And unfortunately, through this process, we get played every single over and over because we don't know the game. We think we do, but we really don't. We're letting other people lead us into a falsehood. And then we fall into it, and then we get who we get. And then when we get who we get, we don't even hold them accountable to what they're supposed to be doing.
But you know what, friends? You can learn the game.
Yes, you can. And then you
just don't want to play.
But see, I'll say this, and I know we got.
I'm not saying that I'm not gonna play, but I'm just saying you get sick of this stuff.
But see, I think I'm gonna say this, and I think this is a thing, and Darrick said it, and I think Francis said it as well about grooming, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think the thing is, we have to learn how to groom somebody, not to be a Democrat or a Republican, but groom them to lead and play the game in that field. You know what I mean? Groom them to the point where they understand the game, they know the game that's being played, but they go in with the mindset of this is my job, this is what I'm doing. Whether they're Democrat or Republican, I can now see somebody that, you know what, I can vote for them because I believe that we can get something accomplished. You know what I mean? And then being able to say whether the Democrat, because see, this is the thing, right? Let's say you vote for somebody right now in the state of Florida for a Democratic seat and they win. They win the seat. What do you think they're going to get done?
Nothing. Depending on their policies. Depending on
it ain't depending on their policies. It's depending on the fact that guess what? You got a majority, super majority, House and Senate with the Republicans.
Mm-hmm.
You think they're gonna ever have?
You think
they're gonna ever have enough votes to get something done?
Correct.
It's gonna be a battle for you.
And then that's whether it is beneficial to the people or not. It's just the fact that you're a Democrat. I'm not gonna vote for your policy.
Right.
See what I'm talking about?
Well, the other thing that we could do,
and I am usually a very positive person. I am happy and upbeat. But when y'all talk about these politics, I be like, ugh.
Well, Lisa, you the one said that's what you want to talk about today.
I know, right?
Yeah. And then I'm sorry we can't get somebody named Darrick McGhee Sr. to run.
I do not blame
we
him.
could do what
I do not
the
blame
Asian community has done. We could do what the Asian community has done, and y'all tell me if I'm wrong. Do you see them talking about running who running for office and who's doing that? It don't matter to them. They have built their own foundation. So whoever wins, you win. We got that. They're going to get whatever works for them, and we have to do the same economically. We have to build our base. So regardless of who wins, we still win.
I mean, but you know, and that's. I mean, and first you're on it. That's the problem, though. You know what I mean? How do we galvanize in our community? You know what I mean? Just down in Fort Pierce, there was a mass shooting in Fort Pierce.
Right.
You know what I mean? And the crazy thing about it was the food truck that got shot up was my nephew's food truck.
Oh wow!
You know what I mean? My sister, her husband's niece got shot. You know what I mean? So how do we? You know, again, we're living in a time where we got to be able to give our younger generation something else to focus on. You know what I mean? They've been programmed. And we have to find a way to change the programming.
Well, see,
you know what I mean?
That's another kitchen talk.
Yeah,
that is truly another kitchen talk in terms of what.
But what I'm saying is, and that's what I'm saying, because what we're talking about as far as when you went to our community, those are certain things that we got to start doing in our community. You know what I mean?
Correct.
We got to find a way to instill a different mindset in certain communities and a way to increase income and you know what I mean. So it's just so many different things on different levels that when you start coming back to the politics of it, all that again, as he say, as Darrick has always said, you know what I mean, is some levels of politics affect or frustrate, and certain levels of politics affect. You know what I mean? And we got to get to a place where we understand the level of politics that we're on, you know, right now and how it's affecting our communities.
Right. Again, that's another talk. We really have to.
But you hear that from me because I ain't want to gossip.
We have to really start thinking about, again, the win-win and not just a win. How do we win regardless of who's in place? How do we continue to push? So, Lisa, if voting or not voting, guess what? I'm winning. And we're not thinking on that level at this point, to me. So
just remember this. In a capitalistic society, he who has the money has the power.
Has the power.
It is.
You know, I don't care what you say. The president, he might stand in front of the people.
Yeah.
But the people with the money is pushing the agenda as to what they want him to say.
Absolutely.
You know, that's why the Republican Party would never speak against the NRA.
Correct.
Yeah.
And until we galvanize and say, hey, we can unite. But again, Willie Lynch did a number on you.
Well, you know, again, you know, I talked about this before. You know, I told you I wrote this little thing called the long-term effects of slavery. You know, but at the end of the day, man, you know, it's like we have to understand that, you know, it's bigger than just, I'm going and I'm gonna go vote. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And we have to understand that, you know, there's a level of power that we have when we change our economic standing.
Yeah.
You know, at the end of the day, one thing I found out, and, you know, some people might disagree, but there's something that poor white people and poor black people got in common. And that is the people in power don't care.
I thought you was going to break out in a Michael Jackson. They don't really care about us.
Because at the end of the day, it's about what? It's about money and power.
Yeah, money and power.
Well, as Lil Kim would say, money, power, and sex.
It's the key to life.
See what I have to deal with.
Doc got so many quotes. I'm loving all of them too.
Right.
But they're loving me and won't you, baby?
see, listen, people, this is what I got to deal with every week. Every week I get this.
Hey, man, we need somebody positive, man.
Absolutely.
Listen, I'm telling you though.
And the reason, so yes, it frustrates me, absolutely. But I think that it's so important for us to have the discussions, to talk about it, and to bring about some type of change, even if it's just more discussions. Because sometimes you could say something out loud and realize how stupid that sounds.
Yeah.
But if you just keeping your thoughts in your head, you think you all right.
Yeah. But you know, and again, and I'm gonna be quiet because then you'll be blaming me for what France do.
It's either you or friends. One of y'all always take us over.
I'm good. I've said my piece tonight.
But again, it goes back to the last thing France was saying about community. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I just really feel like we have to find a way to reach our community.
We do.
And not just reach them with boxes of grocery and food, but reach them with ways of economic empowerment.
Yeah.
There you go.
You know what I mean? When we give levels of economic empowerment and we look and we're standing and when you, I mean, because think about this, when you look at the list of top wealth gainers or earners in the world, the billionaires, how many of them on that list look like us?
Right.
Yeah, no, we ain't on that. I like
You
that.
you see what I'm saying?
Not even on the top 30.
Yeah,
So
correct.
I was listening. They were talking about the top 5 or so wealthiest women in the world, right? And I just knew Oprah was going to be on. Oprah wasn't even there.
Oprah ain't
Not
made
close.
it.
She's
No.
not even close.
No.
You know what I mean? But in our minds, she's one of the
But
wealthiest,
to us, she the GOAT.
right?
And listen, you
Yeah.
saw we saw what happened to Kanye, right? Overnight,
Yeah.
Kanye went from being a billionaire to nowhere near that list because he upset the wrong people. I mean, here's the
Yeah.
thing. Here's my closing comments that I think everybody remember. I think about this quite often.
He's
I work
such
in a
preacher.
profession that's a male-dominated profession, and the one thing I see regularly is really just it's a lens into how whites are able to stay in power position of influence. Is almost every race but the black race invest and advances their generations. I got colleagues who, I'll see 2 competing firms owned by white partners, by white gentlemen. I'll see those 2 guys at lunch together, right? Comparing notes. And they're competitors, comparing notes to each other. Why? Because they're at the top, right?
Yeah.
They're comparing notes. With us, if I walk in a room as a black lobbyist, the black lobbyists in that room, their first mindset is not my mindset is, yeah, man, we're making progress. Their mindset is, I got to get him out the room.
Because that's my competitor.
Exactly. Because that's your friend. It's the will and instinct, right? And the problem with it from the standpoint of our race is, we talk about Dr. King's dream. We keep narrowing the civil rights movement down to a dream. It was talking about social empowerment, economic empowerment, so many great things to talk about now. So now what's happening is Dr. E. Dewey Smith said this. He said that the church has become worse than gangs. Right? We're fighting over our own corners. Worse than gangs are, right?
Lisa,
we're right here. That's it. It's right here. That's it. And
y'all done made Marvin mad.
But you're talking about from a voting perspective, right? We got to look at it from the standpoint of from a generational to generation. You can look at certain generations. Here's why you're able to see some of these generations survive. It's because look at we see Morgan & Morgan commercials every day, right? If you look at those commercials, John Morgan has all 3 of his sons working at the firm, along with him and his wife. Whenever he dies off, one of those sons is going to take over that firm, right?
Right.
It's generational wealth.
Right.
With us,
we could take it even deeper, Darrick, and I know we over time. But the Queen just passed in England. They didn't give it to son. They said, no, I think staying in the family. We're gonna give it to the son. They got it down all the way set up that the kid who's still a baby, if something happens to this person, that person, he's the new king.
It's on him.
But here we are. We can't even think about 2023. We're not even prepared for 2024.
Yeah.
It's a number. It's a number.
Marvin said his battery died. Oh my goodness. It is.
I'm done, Lisa. I'm done.
And it is, I think we have to be, I don't even want to use this word, but it's like we got to be deprogrammed.
Correct.
And then, because it stems from so much that we have mistrust, we have all kind of traumas that we don't deal with, generational traumas that we don't deal with, and a lot of times we do this infighting instead of coming together and fighting the true enemy.
Listen, Dr. King's true speech, his true words, the things that he started to see as he was getting closer and closer to getting the true message out, y'all don't know. Y'all haven't heard. You heard about the okay, let's work together. Let's be nice. When he started to see the true stuff happening behind the smoke and mirrors, he realized, okay, we got to have another message. Once they heard that, you got to go.
Gotta go.
And the true message was what?
Oh, yeah.
Economic empowerment. Once
Yeah.
he started talking about that, once he talked, well,
Yeah.
we're going to go and get our bag.
Right.
Because they giving what we're supposed to have to everybody else.
Right.
So once he started talking that, you got to go.
Yeah.
And from that point, we have never had, another leader in any capacity to have that same message. And to say boldly, we're going after the bag that belongs to every African American.
Yeah.
See, it's okay if a couple of people seep through the crack.
Yeah.
They just don't want it to be a door where people can walk through at will.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
And even in that, Marvin, they are very, if you think about it, even letting a couple of people seep through, I think they still have a hand in who that is.
Well, you know what?
In some ways, I'm sorry, I got a little conspiracy.
No, you're right. You remember the two ladies that was running with Trump? He wanted them to get out there and talk and blah and do this. If you're gonna raise the bell and raise the banter for me, okay, you're fine. But as soon as you turn around, it's got to go.
So as much as I love Oprah and love what she's done, she was not a threat.
No,
she was not a threat to white women in their minds.
Well, let me show you. Let me remind you. I don't know if y'all remember years ago, she got sued by Texas Beef.
Yep, the cow industry. Yep,
the cow industry, because in her just in her talking, she mentioned
she told the people not eat no more beef,
and because she had influence, you follow what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Think about this. Years ago, our leaders used to be entertainers. Sidney Poitier, Lena Horne, you know what I mean? Because they had positions of being in the spotlight, right?
Yeah.
But they were also well thought, well educated, so forth and so on. There's not a reason that our leaders today has to be entertainers. But yet
let me tell you, Malcolm X made that same statement during his era. He said, you know, you have leaders who are truly puppets, because whatever such and such telling them to do, they're gonna say. Such and such say don't do this, then they're gonna do that. Not thinking about the, again, big picture. So I think we still have people like that who you're an entertainer.
I think Marvin was going another way though.
But I mean, no, we're in the same way, in the sense of we have people now who are influencers, but how do they become influencers? You know what I mean? They're leaders, and they can get people to move in one direction or another. You know what I mean? That's just a sign of the generation that we're in. And some of those individuals have no reason to be considered your leader. But
I have a leadership class, and I ask them the same question.
But they're programmed.
Who's your leader?
Yeah.
And many of them call a lot of the entertainers leaders, right? But then we go through the coursework and we talk about what leadership is and how does it look like and how it's defined. And what they find out is some of those people that they chose earlier are not true leaders. They are influencers. They have influence, but when it comes to leadership and some of the values that they have for themselves, they say, no, that person is not the person that I would choose to be my leader. Why? Because they don't truly understand what leadership.
And they didn't ask to be a leader either.
But the
So-
sad
And a
thing
lot of
about
them
it,
don't.
France,
Yeah.
is everybody's not taking your class.
It's a sad world, Doc.
That's right. Mhm.
But you
Listen,
don't have to take my
listen.
world, my class.
This has been, see what I'm talking about? See what I got to deal with, Pastor D? This has been Kitchen Talk, CTC.
Conversation that
Cook.
cook.
That's what they do. And then even though they run over, the meal's still good. It don't go bad.
Feel good.
Listen,
Feel
thank
good.
you so much, Pastor Darrick McGhee, for hanging out with us. Darrick
Absolutely.
McGhee Senior for hanging out
My
with
pleasure.
us tonight. Appreciate you so much.
Yes, ma'am.
Keep talking, guys. Keep talking about voting and politics and what we're supposed to do. And I know I make the plan to talk about it. Even though it's not one of my favorite topics, but we gotta keep it in the forefront. We gotta start, we gotta keep having these conversations. We gotta keep effecting change, even within ourselves. And then it spreads abroad. So
Yes.
thank you so much. We are gonna be back here next Thursday, same time at 9:00, hanging out in the kitchen, having one of those great conversations that really cooks. Thank you, Dr. Marvin Scotts, for hanging out with us. Thank you, Fransley Moyes, JT. It ain't a show unless we lose JT at least once. So it's been great. Listen, if you are watching us on YouTube, I want you to hit that subscribe button. Make sure you turn on your notifications so you never miss another show. If you're watching us on Facebook, hit the like button. Again, turn on those notifications so you'll always be right there when the conversation is rolling. We appreciate you so much for hanging out with us tonight. And we're going to see you guys back next Thursday. Well, I mean, not you, Pastor McGhee, because you'll be,
Oh no, you come back. You come back.
You are going to come back anytime you like.
I appreciate that.
Anytime.
What you said, Marvin?
Oh, I ain't.
All right, y'all. Good night.
Let's talk, let's talk. What you wanna talk about? Let's talk, let's talk. What you wanna talk about? Kitchen talk.